Heads up that this episode includes explicit descriptions of physical and sexual violence that may be upsetting to some listeners or inappropriate for young ears.
When I was younger, the only way I knew to deal with things was to be like a fighter. It didn't take a whole lot for me to just snap. But once I initially had my first fight and seeing that I could win a fight, then I was like, that's my go-to. And I mean, it didn't take anything. The wind could blow hard. You could step on my Nikes and you could go to the emergency room that day. I was just that angry.
I'm Eva Tenuto, the co-founder and executive director of TMI Project, a nonprofit storytelling organization based in Kingston, New York. Over the last 10 years, we've collected nearly 2,000 true stories.
And I'm Micah, a workshop facilitator for TMI Project. In alignment with the Black Lives Matter movement, the theme of Season 2 is Black Stories Matter. We are amplifying the voices of Black storytellers who got on stage and shared their stories of joy, pain, and resilience. All of the Black Stories Matter workshops were led by myself and my co-workshop leader, Dara Lurie, who will be our guest co-host for this season. You'll get to meet Dara in the next episode.
In the first episode of Season 2, we're featuring one of my heroes.
And also one of my heroes.
Jessieca McNabb.
How much time we got? Do I got time to make a quick phone call?
Here in Kingston, Jessieca McNabb is kind of an icon.
Oh, for a 104-pound boy. Yeah. Oh.
Everybody knows her because for 10 years she worked at Stewart's, a local convenience store and gas station. When Jessieca is behind the counter, you'll find her customers, or as she calls them, her fans, standing there in awe, hungry for more jokes.
I'm an equal opportunity buster. That's what I do.
Stop in and buy a quart of milk and a lotto ticket. Stay for the free comedy. Because Jessieca is also a stand-up comedian and a storyteller.
When I was a younger kid, just up to like 5, 6, 7, 8, I was very timid and very reserved, if you can imagine that. So my mom's best friend, her daughter, who was probably 20 pounds lighter than me, used to whoop my ass every time she saw me. She just beat me up for no reason. She was just a mean kid. My mother would whoop my ass again and send me outside and be like, when you learn to fight back, she'll stop whooping your ass.
Jessieca grew up in a large, loving, and sometimes rowdy family. 3 sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, and friends who felt like family too. Her loving, charismatic mom, Cheryl, was at the epicenter.
You know, my mom used to throw huge parties, 200-300 people, and maybe 100 of them would be kids at a barbecue at our house.
She taught Jessieca to stay loyal to her family, to love herself, and above all, not to take shit from anybody.
I think I was like 6, and my uncle and my aunt were getting married at our house in High Falls in the front yard. That was a great day that I seen them like hanging out and laughing. And I think that's the first time I ever remember seeing my dad and my mom like kiss each other. My dad was a handsome devil now. Sometimes he had like a cropped little afro, but he had the pork chop Elvis-like sideburns. He looked like he was 6'4". He was 5'11". He had a 3rd grade education. He worked his life and had things that no black man should have had in the early 70s. He bought a house in a white neighborhood. He had a wife. He had kids. They had cars. They had everything that all the white people around us had. They were only physically together, living in the same house until I was 9. Like, I didn't know that there was anything going wrong until we were moving. I was like, what happened? I mean, what's going on? And then it was still stay out of grown folks' business. So it wasn't like I got an explanation of, you know, why they split up or, I mean, she still doesn't explain a lot of it to this day. She was like, you know, she married when she was young. She was 15 years old when she married my dad. And he was 23.
So she's 9, and her father, who she so clearly adores and looks up to, is suddenly gone. She's angry, she's confused, and like any kid would, she needs an outlet. So remember that girl? Mom's best friend's daughter? The next time she came around, Jessieca was ready for her.
We were at the house and we were having this big barbecue, and all my uncles and aunts and stuff were there too. So when she came to me, like she always would, my uncle looked at me and he was like, okay, so today is your day. We fought on Clinton Avenue for like a square block. Like we were underneath the car fighting. We were in traffic fighting. This was like a half-hour fight. I thought I was going to be like in trouble because she was jacked up. I mean, she was ragged. She was bleeding. She was holding her eyes. She was holding her ass. I think my shoe was stuck in her ass. I don't know. And she never, ever tried to fight me again. And when we were in 8th grade, she tried to say something slick to me in the hallway in high school. And I was like, did you forget who I am? You forget who I am? You want some more of that? You want some more of that? She was like, yeah, no. We don't want no more of that.
After Jessieca moved away from her dad, he was still a big part of her life, and they saw each other as often as possible. It was a good relationship.
I can remember watching like TV and Star Trek and all the old wrestling and help him out with his fish tanks and clean those. And he would show me, I would say, all the quote unquote boy stuff. Like when I turned 13, he's like, come outside, I want to show you something. And he was like, this is how you rotate your tires on your car in your driveway. And that's what he showed me. In like 1985 or something like that, somebody mugged him on Broadway in Kingston and stabbed him in his stomach. And he was hemophiliac. Like right away, they had to start pumping him with blood. But at this time, it was before they started testing the bloods. And, you know, that was the 80s. AIDS was on the rise and they didn't have a grip on it and they couldn't, you know, really control it. They didn't have any medication to slow it down. It was just, if you got that, that was just a death sentence. It evolved pretty quickly from HIV positive to AIDS. We kept him home as long as we could keep him home. And then he was in the hospital probably like the last 3 weeks or so of his life. Passed away almost a year after I graduated. And, you know, you're dealing with the grief of that. I felt cheated because I didn't get to go to that next level with him. And I was just like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. The last fight, physical fight that I got into, I think I was 21. No, I wasn't 21. I was 20. It was a year to the day that my dad had passed away. I mean, my friend just went out. She had took me out for the day. And, you know, we went to the cemetery and all that stuff. And she was like, let's go have a drink and play some pool. And I was like, all right. I was dating this guy then, and he was dating some other chick behind my back. And I walked in the bar, and this chick had my coat on. And he was like, yeah, I finally found the match. You can't kick everybody's ass, so you're going to talk shit today. She's going to beat your ass and blah, blah, blah. And look, I took a look at this girl, and I'm not saying a white girl just because a white girl, but she was a huge white girl. She looked like she had just stepped out of Gold's Gym, like muscles ripped. Now the bar spills out, and they're like, oh, come on, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight. And when she came at me, she was just like talking, trying to make me hit her first. And then she called me the dreaded N-word. And then all bets are off after that. I just hit her in her face, and she grabbed her face, and I seen the blood coming from between her fingers. And I was like, oh, shit. I had been in a lot of fights where I just kind of had like blackout moments. And then I would come out and they'd be like, yo, you tore her up, da 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 da. And I really wouldn't remember what happened. But this fight that I got into with her, it's still like clear as day. It plays like a movie in my head still. And it was very calculated. And what I was doing, I meant to do. Like I really meant to like punish her. And I could feel like the more I hit her, the more of a release I started feeling. The last blow that I struck to her, I kicked her in her face with some steel-toed boots on. A little bit longer, and I probably could have killed her. And I saw my friend, one of my very best friends, look at me in a way like she didn't even know who I was. At that moment, I really decided that that was not the type of person that I wanted to be. It let me let go of the violent part and have to figure out a different way to channel my anger. And that was it.
And that was it, right?
That was it. No more fighting. Don't get me wrong. I had to slap up a couple people every now and again, but they just little slaps, just a little bitch slap, little pimp hand on them. But I don't beat nobody's ass no more.
A couple of decades later, I met Jessieca at Stewart's, the convenience store where she worked. A lot had happened in those intervening years. First, she came out to her family and her community.
I was a black woman coming from a religious family, and they just weren't having that. You couldn't talk about it. I knew people in my family that were, but it was just an unspoken word, and no one ever said anything. And I knew from a young age that I had interest in women because I was just looking at that Jet magazine centerfold just a little too long. Why is that interesting to me?
And after turning away from organized religion as a kid, she had a spiritual awakening on her own terms when she was baptized in the ocean near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
And when he dipped me down into the water, I felt like everything went like slow motion. Like I didn't feel like I was running out of air, but I felt like he had me under the water for a long time. I could imagine my mom being pregnant with me with all the fluid around me. That's kind of what it made me feel like. So when he pulled me out of the water, I was just like, with that breath. He looks me right in my eyes and he was like, yeah, I think I better dunk you again. And he puts me back down into the water again. And I came up and it was like an overpowering emotion. Like I was beside myself crying. Like I was crawling out of the water on my hands and knees. Like I'm talking about it right now, and I get choked up now talking about it because that's what it was. It was just, it freed me from so many things that I carried around for so long.
So there she was at Stewart's, born again in many ways, in accepting herself and her sexuality, in her faith in God and her commitment to love and nonviolence, but still hilarious, unfiltered, and holding court for her legions of fans. This was also right around the time that I started TMI Project with Julie Novak. We kept bugging Jessieca to come take a writing workshop because she was obviously born to have a mic in her hand. She agreed, but honestly, I had no idea what she was about to unearth.
That first workshop that I took was a fight against myself to write what wanted to come out, but I didn't want it to come out. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like I wanted to do it, but then I just had an issue with being that vulnerable. Just a lot of things that had been building up over the years, things that I couldn't talk about or, tell anyone about. There was a quote unquote cousin. It just started like really simple, like sit on my lap and 8, 9, maybe even 7. It got to the point where he would be like, he's going to take me to the store. And then he would take me over to the other cousin's house, like in the basement. And, he was stupid. He tried to convince me that he loved me and that this is how he showed it. And he's just an asshole. He's just a pervert. I felt like there was a possibility that I did something wrong or, you never know. You're a kid.
She kept pushing herself to write through some of her most painful memories. And once those floodgates opened, there was no stopping her.
It was like a crackhead taking their first hit of crack. I was addicted.
And in writing about rage, she made a connection to the way that she learned to channel it productively through a twist in her career path after that last fight when she was 20 years old. She became a butcher.
I had no idea that it would have that type of effect on me, like being able to like cut stuff and it bleed, and there was nobody there with handcuffs to take me to jail. So I would like overcut the case all the time. They'd be like, "You're cutting too much meat. You're cutting too much meat." I was like, "Well, I got a lot of problems today. I got some stuff to get off my chest today."
She performed her first monologue with us in 2015.
When I get a job at Kroger's, a supermarket, I'm filled with anger. Sometimes what I do with my anger scares me. I get into fights. I once nearly killed someone. Luckily, this job takes the edge off a little. I like working with food, and I love when I have the opportunity to learn something new. Every day I come to work, I can't wait to cut meat. My mind wanders to how angry I've been since I was 9 years old when we packed up and moved away from my dad. I cut, and I feel as if I'm cutting away my anger. I slam the meat on the counter, trim the fat, pick it up, turn it over. Cutting meat is like body slamming the person I'm thinking of. I think about all the different men that violated me. Precise cutting. Take that, bastard. Then a deep cut. How's that feel? I almost feel like crying as I finish this soulful cleanse. That's supposed to be serious, y'all.
Two years later, Jessieca and 11 other storytellers, including myself, took the stage to share our experiences as Black people in America. It's important to set the context. Kingston is not a town that RSVPs for much of anything, and many of our events are free to the public, so we didn't know how many people would come for Black Stories Matter. But on the night of the performance, we were sold out, a standing room crowd of more than 600 people. The crowd was kind of electrified when Jessieca swaggered onto the stage that night. She had these long locks that she's been growing for years. When she works, she keeps them up in a visor. But on the night of the performance, she had them down. Here's Jessieca reading her full monologue at Point of Praise Family Center.
What's up? Some of you may know me. A couple of y'all. I do stand-up routines 40 hours a week from behind the counter at the store where I work. The other day I'm at work, and this elderly white lady comes up to the register, and I say, "Hey there, young lady. How are you today?" "Oh, you're too kind. Calling me a young lady? Damn, I'm good." She's already charmed. "Oh, you're not just a young lady. You're a beautiful young lady. And you look like you just came from the salon. Your hair is fabulous." I know I'm laying it on, but come on. There's nothing wrong with making an old lady feel good while she's buying her eggs. She says to me, "I really like your hat." By this time, one of my regulars, or as I like to call them, my fans, joined us at the register. "You mean my visor?" I ask. "You like this old thing?" I hate wearing it. Honestly, it drives me crazy. It takes me a good 20 minutes to get my locks in that thing every day. She says, "No, the hat on your head." Now, my first thought, I know this old raggedy chick ain't talking about my hair. But I contain myself, and I say calmly, "Oh, you like my hair?" She says, "Surely you jest. That's not your hair." My thought, I know this mother... is not telling me my own hair is not my hair. However, I say, I don't jest, and Shirley is my mother. By now, the other customers in on the conversation. No, really, it's her hair. Cool, right? The lady chuckles and has a sarcastic, oh, really, look on her face. I say, no, really, it's my hair. I lean over the counter, I bring my ponytail down to her. Go ahead, pull it. It's really my hair. Oh, I can't do that. No, please do. She pulls my hair a bit. See, I told you. I say, glad that this ridiculous debate about whether my own hair is actually my own hair is over. But when I look up at her, she has this look on her face as she still doesn't believe me. You people aren't able to grow your hair that long. Must be a wig of some sort. Now, and Lord forgive me, she has poked my inner black bitch. What in the ham sandwich does she mean by you people? I do what I've taught myself to do. I take a deep breath, but I can't help but to think about the way I would have handled this when I was younger. As a young woman, the devil was always ahead of me. I always had a knee-jerk reaction and said the first thing that came to mind. Back then, I didn't know I was combating fear with fear. Growing up, from kindergarten to 4th grade, I am one of the only, if not the only black person in the school. And there are lots of kids that never let me forget that on a daily basis. My first day of school, I'm sent home for fighting a boy after he pulls my hair and calls me Blackie. That's just the beginning. There isn't very much protection from the teachers or staff. I'm told to just ignore them. However, that doesn't seem to help, so I start asking my uncle to teach me to fight. With very little training, I'm ready. I figure if they won't stop, I will make them stop. I will never forget this day as long as I live. I'm in 4th grade. 5 boys in my class surround me on the playground. They're pushing me around and calling me names. Hey, coon. Hey, Blackie. Hey, nigger, why don't you go back to Africa? I'm so terrified. Please stop hurting me. I beg them to leave me alone. I try to run and call for help, but no one hears me. I feel trapped. These boys are really gonna hurt me. Then I remember what my uncle said. Grab the biggest one and go crazy. That way the smaller ones will get scared and back off. Serious shit. So when the biggest kid spits on me and pushes me down, I come up swinging. A punch straight to the throat. When the other boys see their friend is hurt, all of a sudden, no one's laughing anymore. Everyone is in attack mode. I feel as if I turned into a tornado. I'm punching and kicking one by one. They feel my wrath. Who's the nigga now? Who's the nigga now? Who you gonna beat down? I hate all of you crackers. Now I'm crying and screaming and fighting. Oh, now the teacher wants to come help. She screams at me, "Stop it, Jess, stop it. Get off of him." Get off of him? What about get them off of me? Where were you when they were terrorizing me? They started it. To the principal's office we go. The boys have to make a pit stop at the nurse's office to get fixed up. Now they call the parents into the school. I can hear my mother in the office with the principal. Now, just so you understand, my mother is about 24 years old, married with me, a 5-year-old, and 3-year-old unexpected twins. She don't play. I can hear her talking. Let me get this right. You want to suspend my daughter for beating up 5 boys who attacked her, and because she kicked their butts, she's in trouble? Oh no, it's not happening like this. These other parents should teach their kids better. If they don't want to be hit, they shouldn't hit anyone. Another parent chimes in. I have to take my son to the emergency room. He's in severe pain, and his friends are all bruised and battered. Well, my mom replies, you should have taught your son to keep his hands to himself. My daughter was protecting herself, which is something the school should have done. How did it get this far without anyone noticing? These kids got what they deserved. I bet they won't try this crap again. And if they do, I will let my daughter know to protect herself. Again, since apparently no one here will. As I get older, I find another way to combat racism. I find that if I keep control of my inner black bitch, I could finally get ahead of the devil. When I come in contact with someone with a slick comment or racial undertones, I try to fight it with an open heart and a sense of humor, while I still stand my ground. Back to this old lady. You people aren't able to grow your hair that long. Must be a wig of some sort. I look at this old lady. I'm gonna get ahead of the devil. But as long as it took me to grow these locks, I'm gonna have to show this woman. So I pull off my visor, and I take out my hair ties, and I start whipping my hair around like a headbanging rock star. You don't think these are real? Take a good look now. I lay my locks across the counter like a blanket. Get a handful now and tell me it's a wig. Oh my. She leaves the store in a hurry. She may have been a little overwhelmed, but I didn't leave her bruised and battered. Now, I understand this method is not for everyone. In this day and age of racial profiling and senseless killing of people of color, I can understand people's frustration. But I believe strongly that we as a people need to dig deep and embrace humanity. We have to work to see each individual person and not just be consumed by the color of someone's skin. I'm done fighting fear with fear and combating hate with hate. At the same time, I can understand people wanting to fight back, like that 9-year-old girl who felt like she was fighting for her life.
You've been listening to the first episode in our second series of the TMI Project Podcast, Black Stories Matter. And the truth is that we started producing this episode in another time, before COVID-19, before the collective, unprecedented national outcry over the senseless murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd. So we couldn't end this episode without a postscript. Back in May, Jessieca attended a Black Lives Matter event in Kingston. It was an extraordinary day. In a town of 23,000, there were well over 1,000 people. We all gathered in Academy Green, which is a park in the middle of town. There are several local activists taking turns at the microphone with calls for action.
is stronger than fear and hate, and Black lives matter. Thank you.
Ironically, the speakers are positioned in front of towering statues of Peter Stuyvesant, Henry Hudson, and Governor George Clinton, 3 stark reminders of hundreds of years of white male supremacy and intolerance. Even though Jessieca wasn't scheduled to speak that day, she starts moving through the crowd, heading toward the stage.
Just that morning, her young nephew confessed to her that he didn't want to go to the rally at all. With everything in the news and all the violence against Black people, he's been afraid he's going to be killed. Jessieca said later, it was too much. He's a sweet 10-year-old who really just likes being a kid. And after listening to all those speeches, something moved in my soul, and I couldn't hold it in anymore.
She climbs on stage and asks for the microphone.
My heart is breaking because we had to have a discussion with my 10-year-old nephew to let him know that he can be safe, that people are here to protect him. That is a ridiculous conversation to have with a 10-year-old kid. They are stealing our youth's innocence. They are stealing their childhood for being forced to grow up in a situation like this. I know we want a task force to hold the police accountable, but I'm listening to the words of my grandmother. You must take care of home first. And they need to hold each other accountable. If you are not a bad police officer, hold your colleague accountable. Do not stand there and watch them do what they do. And if you are not holding your colleagues accountable, you are just as guilty. I am so glad to see the rainbow of colors here today, because this is what we need. It can't be just us fighting this fight. We've been fighting this fight for over 400 years. And I don't care why you're here to fight, as long as you're here to fight in solidarity, for equality, for all. I'm not asking for a leg up. I'm asking for the playing field to be even and equal, so we all have the same opportunities. We all have the same education. We all have the same resources to tap into. It is 2020. I'm tired of hearing about the first Black this and the first Black that. No justice! No justice! No justice!
Thank you, Jessieca, for always showing up so powerfully.
We love you so much.
This episode was written, edited, and produced by Hayley Downs and mixed by Marlan Barry. Our Director of External Affairs is Sarah DeRose. The Operations Manager is Blake File. Shantae Howell is the publicist for this season of the podcast. And Clarissa Marie Ligon is our Black Stories Matter Virtual Workshop Manager. Lauren Gill is our Graphic Designer and Webmaster. This podcast is co-produced by Radio Kingston. Special thanks to Ida Hakkila, Nate Brogan, Kale Kaposhilin, Jimmy Buff, and Northguild Productions. Our theme song is Secrets by Edison Woods, with additional composition by Marlan Barry and Maxime Moston.
Here's the part where we ask for your help. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps. TMI Project is a nonprofit organization, and we rely on the generous support of our listeners. Help us continue to create radically true stories that have the power to change the world. Make a donation today. TMIproject.org.